Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People, where people seem to demand more than they deserve because they think they're better than everybody. Guys, I hope you're having a great day today, and boy, oh boy, do I have a crazy lineup today. It'll leave you shaking your head. But before we dive into the stories, check this out. A lady calls 911 because she doesn't like her son's haircut. It's ridiculous.
Look at this lady wasting my day. Wait for a bad haircut. For a bad haircut that I gave her son that he asked for.
You want to
Look at
laugh?
her wasting my day. Look at this whack job. Bonehead's barbershop. Bonehead's barbershop. Whack job. Whack job.
Can you tell him to get away from my face?
No, I won't. No, I won't.
Look
at her. Look at her. Look at her. Look at her. Look at her.
My friends, imagine that, getting the police called on you because of a haircut. Now, I'm pretty sure the haircut was 100% fine. I'm not sure what the mom was expecting, and I'm very curious as to what it looks like. With that said, guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today, and do hit that subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed. We're diving in, guys. Get ready. My buddy is a very good surgeon, and has dedicated his life to medicine. He frequently goes to hotspots around the world to offer his services. He is unmarried, and the only thing he does for himself is take 3 or 4 weeks off twice a year, once in July and once in December. He told me he does this so he doesn't lose his mind. So on those times, he really lets loose. He'll go on vacation somewhere, maybe take up a hobby, go skydiving, scuba diving, meet women, eat wild food, and at Christmas, he spends time with his brother's family, and apparently gives some pretty nice gifts. He's a really good person and an excellent surgeon. Without giving too much away, before COVID, at his hospital, they had a pretty busy day, which at a hospital is never a good thing. He was doing one emergency surgery after another. Everyone was slammed and more people were waiting for emergency care. One person had already died because of the backlog, and a few more on the operating table. No matter how good the surgeon is, sometimes you simply can't save people. So in the midst of all this chaos, an entitled Karen walks into the ER and begins demanding that someone see her brat kid, who had a bruise on his face because another kid punched him at school, probably for being a brat. So they sit her down in the waiting room. So her kid went and apparently decided that he was the only one allowed to play with the hospital waiting room toys, and he would scream at any kids who tried to approach. My buddy, meanwhile, is trying to save the life of a 16-year-old who was in a horrific car accident, and sadly, the kid didn't make it. Now, I always feel that this is the worst thing for a surgeon. They try their best, but sometimes it's not good enough. So my buddy gets his own emotions in check before going to face the parents. They have a special room for this in the hospital. It has comfortable furniture and a table that's nailed down. He's in the middle of breaking down this awful news to the parents, who are feeling a pain that words can't even begin to describe, when Karen bursts in. Apparently, she followed the parents, as they were escorted to the room. She took a look around and said, "So, when you're done taking a break, my son needs you immediately." My buddy then interrupts her, tells her to give them a moment, and shoves her out and calls security. He finishes talking to the parents and then goes to the waiting room. The secretary fills him in. She tells the doctor that ever since he turned Karen away and interrupted her, the Karen has been berating the secretary about being so rudely treated by the doctor that she wants him reprimanded for being unprofessional. So at this point, the doctor goes over to the kid, and in the waiting room gives the kid a quick look over, declares that he doesn't have a concussion, and tells Karen to get out of my hospital before I call police. Now at this point, the woman is stunned. She tries to argue that he's a useless doctor, blah blah blah, and the doctor says, "No, I have patients that need me much more than you. Your son is fine, you just need to raise him better. Get out now." He then had security escort her and her kid all the way to the car to ensure that she actually left. Now, this is a guy who I've never seen get angry, but when he told me the story, he was shaking with rage. Guys, OP's friend is such a badass, way to shut down an entitled Karen who thinks that her son is way more important than others at a hospital. Now, I wish I could see the look on her face when the doctor told her to raise her kid better and had her thrown out by security. And for all who are concerned about the well-being of the kid, he's absolutely fine. OP comes into the comments saying that his friend would never turn away someone who was actually in need of medical help. The kid was basically being a brat, and then he got hit for it. My sister and brother-in-law own the house that my parents are living in. So back in the spring, my mom suffered several strokes and a heart attack in a matter of weeks, leaving her in a pretty bad physical state. My dad has been caring for my mom 24/7. My dad's father also passed away during the summer, and somehow during the funeral and family gatherings, both of my parents caught COVID. My mom's health then severely declined, and my dad had to make a tough decision to put her in a nursing facility. When my mom went in the nursing home, my dad decided to stay with his mother for a while. It was a good setup, since my dad's mom was newly widowed and lived near my mom's nursing facility. Meanwhile, my sister's sister-in-law got a divorce. She and her ex decided to sell the house they lived in with their 4 kids. She then was given a very fair amount of time to find another house for her and her kids to move, but she didn't. Moving day came and sister-in-law had no house. Now, instead of looking for a house over the weeks before the deadline, sister-in-law takes a vacation with her new boyfriend. She was ready with a sob story about how she had no money, where will her kids live, etc., while she used her alimony check for Botox. She also gets child support for her 4 kids. She won't move in with the boyfriend because that would put an end to her alimony dollars, so she takes her 4 crotch goblins and moves into a hotel. So since no one has stepped up and offered her a free set of house keys, sister-in-law sets her sights on the house that my parents have been living in. Her and her mom basically start to blow up my sister's phone, wanting to know why my dad hasn't moved out of the house yet. And she demands my sister evict him since they're the landlord, so she can move in because they need it more. Now, my dad is grieving the loss of his father and dealing with my mom's poor health, and also taking care of his mom and working a full-time job. He has to go through a lifetime's worth of personal items, furniture, etc. before he can even go anywhere. That's not good enough for sister-in-law and mother-in-law because they pitch a fit and sister-in-law cries, basically demanding that my sister and brother-in-law throw my dad out of the house that they own because sister-in-law needs it, since she has 4 kids. Boo-hoo. Now, sister-in-law is an entitled princess who's used to getting her way and having things handed to her. She's a 35-year-old woman but behaves like a spoiled child. Imagine the level of selfishness it takes to demand that a grieving man be tossed out of his home because this entitled woman was too irresponsible and lazy to get out and find a house for herself and her kids. What a super entitled brat that sister-in-law is. How many of you would kick your parents out of your own house so a spoiled 35-year-old who would rather take a vacation and spend money on Botox can live there? The answer is nobody. Nobody, right? Like, I feel so bad for those kids. Their mom had weeks to try to set up a living situation for her kids, and instead decides to take a vacation with her new boyfriend. Congratulations, you win the Mom of the Year award, and trust me, it's nothing to be proud about. My friends, and speaking of the Mom of the Year award, y'all gotta fasten your seatbelts for this next story because it's bonkers. My dad died winter of 2016. It was a very sudden heart attack in his sleep. My oldest was 6 at the time, and my dad was her best friend. Now, the death hit us all very hard, and I was struggling to help my daughter through her first real loss while mourning myself. My mom decided to self-medicate with crack and whiskey. Great mom. She kept making promises to my daughter about spending time together, but then bailing at the last minute. Being 6, my daughter was suddenly terrified that she would lose my mom too. My mom would always go to parties to hook up, do copious amounts of drugs, or hang out at the bar. She said that this was her way of grieving. I said that it was her spiraling, but she refused to seek help. Mental stability was not a priority in that household. Ever. So here's where the entitlement comes into play. Less than 2 months after his death, my mom starts dating a new man. By February, she told my 6-year-old that grandma has a new man friend. Now, my mom didn't bother telling me. I got to hear about it through my 6-year-old's tears. She felt like grandma was replacing Pop Pop. Now, even if that isn't the case, the relationship was new and the kid was still grieving. She didn't need to know about grandma's new relationship yet. But my mom disagreed. She said that she has the right to tell her granddaughter whatever she wants. We then get into a heated argument about boundaries and my daughter's right to mourn. And my mother said, "You need to support me on this." Now, I did inform her, like she did when I came out of the closet, that no, I don't have to support you, but I do have to accept you. She then accused me of demanding she break up with her boyfriend because, quote, a child threw a tantrum. I told her she was welcome to live her life, but she didn't need to involve my daughter in every aspect of it. A few months went by of my mother constantly trying to force her new boyfriend into my daughter's life. Now, she would ask to take my daughter somewhere to spend time together, and I would ask if her boyfriend would be joining them. I had to turn her down several times after asking my daughter if she was comfortable enough to get to know him, and she was not. Each time, my mother would scream at me about ruining her life and impeding on her grief. She was in mourning, and how could I treat her this way? Now, at this point, my daughter's 7th birthday rolls around, and we get ready for a family party held in our backyard. I specifically told my mom that she was invited, but her boyfriend was not, as the family wasn't ready to see a new man replacing dad. We just wanted a family gathering that was strictly close family to enjoy ourselves. This was a 7-year-old's birthday party. The birthday girl made the guest list, and it's no place for drama. Well, guess what mom does? Now, not only does my mother bring her new boyfriend, oh no, it turns out the poor guy had just had a stroke or something and needed assistance walking. He temporarily needed a walker, and the party was through grass to the backyard. My mother had left her date to fend for himself at the side of the road, and she pranced into the party with a look of absolute triumph that didn't make sense at first. Then I saw him around the corner. Now, he was a man I didn't recognize, and it could only be one person. On either side of him were my in-laws, holding his arms and helping him along the grass. They didn't know him either, but they saw him struggling in the front yard and decided to help him make it to the backyard. The moment my daughter saw him, she began bawling her eyes out. Seeing my mom without my dad was hard enough, but seeing another man in the place where Pop-Pop is supposed to be just broke her. My daughter runs inside to her room, and before I could get someone to cover the grill for me, my mom chases after her. I found him in my room. My daughter was trying to pull away from my mom, and my mom was hugging her tight and muttering in her ear. Something inside me just snapped. I knew that position all too well. She was being told that she was a selfish child for having emotions. I jerked my mom away from my daughter and pulled her into the other room where the yelling began. My mom then screams at me and says, "She needs to learn to get over this. Dad is gone." I tell her, "She's 7, Mom. This is hard for her. You're being so mean to me. I just lost my husband." I tell her, "And my daughter just lost her grandfather. We're all hurting, Mom. I told you he wasn't welcome. She wasn't ready to see him, and none of the family was either." My mom then says, "Well, he's already here, so there's nothing she can do but get over it." I then tell her that she needs to leave, and my mom says, "You can't kick me out." And I tell her to leave because it's my house. Now leave. Now, my mom didn't go quietly. Everybody at the party knew that she was, quote, thrown out by my own daughter, who can't seem to control her emotions. When my mom was finally gone, I hugged my sobbing 7-year-old and asked her what Grandma said exactly. My daughter told me that she said, "You're not allowed to be sad anymore because he's only your grandpa, but he was my husband. So you are not allowed to be sadder than Grandma." Now at that, my stomach churned, and I was suddenly very sorry that I didn't pop my mother across the face before she left. Guys, just when you think these stories can't get any more ridiculous, right? I can't believe Grandma said that to her granddaughter, seriously. You're not allowed to be more sad than Grandma because he was your grandpa, but he was my husband. Like, wow, that is the most ridiculous thing to say to your grieving granddaughter. Like, come on, Pop-Pop was her best friend, lady, so I don't even know what to say. So OP does come back with an update, and the update reads, "We did go no contact for nearly a year. And despite my mother throwing tantrums herself, we waited until my daughter felt ready to let Grandma back into her life. She was able to mourn and heal in peace. And for all those who were asking about my mom, yes, she was high and drunk a lot of the time. That didn't faze me because my parents have always used drugs, and I grew up thinking that it was normal. I absolutely understand now that it's not, of course. The new guy is deeply religious. He has the occasional beer and smokes a little bud, but he got my mom off the crack and the hard stuff." So this happened 3 years ago. I was renting a basement apartment that I loved, and my landlords were great. I lived there for about 3.5 years. Halfway through, they told me that they wanted to sell the place, but probably not that soon, since the husband was working on a commercial ship for 9 months at the time. I just asked them to let me know when they decided to sell and give me enough notice. They happily told me that they would. Anyways, 13 or 14 months pass, and they decide to start the process. They introduce me to the realtors, and everything gets sorted out. Now, up until this point, everything is going great. The realtors would give me 24-hour notice before bringing potential buyers in. I was also told that I can stay home during the showings or go about my business. I have no complaints about them or my landlords throughout the entire process. So one day, I get back from work and didn't really feel like going out again. The realtors came with a family of 5 or 6. It was announced to me, and I had decided to stay in that day. The family consisted of a mother, a father, adult daughter, and 2 or 3 kids. I can't remember. The father was a real piece of work. Now, the thing is, I live in a very touristy town on the Mediterranean coast. It was summer. People try to pull all sorts of cons here. So they're walking around the place, checking it out, when I hear the dad say, "Now, I know you said someone lives here, but we hope to stay a couple of days to get the feel of the place. You know, before we buy it." The realtor says, I don't think you can do that. This place isn't for rent, and like you said, it's currently occupied. Someone lives here." The dad says, "Well, I can't buy something just like that. We need to try it out. But okay, obviously we can't stay the night." So I then chime in and said, sorry, no, you can't, I live here. He then moves on, measures things left and right, wondering out loud whether their large wardrobe will fit in the bedroom. The guy says he wants to buy an apartment for his daughter because she wants to go to college here. Eventually they pack up and I see them walking to the beach. The next day, there are no scheduled showings. So I decided to do the thing that everyone does when they live next to a beach. I take a nap after work. But before my head even hits the pillow, I hear someone coming down the stairs. Now, there were only 2 basement apartments and my neighbors were gone away for a week. I get up and go to the door to check it out, but before I even make it halfway there, someone rattles the doorknob and then 10 seconds later starts knocking. Now, I was really confused and a little freaked out. I go to the door, look out the peephole, and lo and behold, it's the father from yesterday. I don't open my door. I asked, "Who is it?" The dad says, "Hey, it's me. We were here yesterday." I asked him, "What do you want?" The dad says, "I just want to measure the space in the bedroom to see if my daughter's wardrobe will fit." I told him, "No, I'm sorry, but you're not getting in. If you want to come back, you'll have to call the realtor." The dad then says, "But I can't buy the place if I don't know. It's for my daughter." I then tell him to call the realtor again, as they have all the measurements on file, and again, I tell him I'm not letting you in. The dad then says, "Don't make me buy this place and evict you. Consider yourself homeless." Now at this point, the dad starts cussing out and I hear him going away. I call the landlords and realtors after that, and they were mortified and worried that someone like that just came to my place, tried to let themselves in, and threatened to evict me. The dad did not buy the apartment after all, because the landlords refused to ever deal with him again. The realtors told him that it was sold. And to this day, I believe their plan was to find a place to crash at for a few days for a free vacation, under the pretext of buying the place for their daughter. I set up cameras around the apartment to keep an eye on it while I was at work. I spent the entire summer not feeling safe in my home. Guys, that is wild. I have never heard of people asking to live in a place before buying it. Like, is that even a thing? I actually wonder if OP was right about them trying to score a free place to stay at while on vacation. Either way, that guy was creepy as hell, demanding to come back and get measurements. My friends, what do you guys think? Let me know. And that brings us to another end of our / entitled people. Guys, what another wild episode. If you enjoyed the stories today, do hit that thumbs up. And if you missed the last episode I did, a neighbor thinks she's invincible and harasses OP since her husband is a cop. And OP teaches her a lesson that she won't forget. I'm sorry, I almost laughed there because it's so ridiculous. My friends, check out that story if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.